Welcome to the Writer Reads Short Stories. Today's reading is from Harper and the Unicorn, Part 2. Dawson, I said, dangling the pistol from my fingers so he could take it. Harper, he replied, put 'em on your head and tell your pet to stand down. I looked over at the unicorn, and it moved to stand beside me, resting the lower half of its face against my side, its horn protruding out in front of my chest. Sorry, boy, I said. We tried. He snorted and turned, taking me around with him until we faced the direction of what I'd decided were thorn elves. Their leader watched, no expression on his face, no hint of feeling in his eyes. Why did you come? To find my friend, I said, and the elf nearest me stepped in and drove a fist into my gut. The thorned ridge running across its knuckles slammed into my body armor, but some of the impact got through, making me grunt. The second elf approached the unicorn, a halter of braided vines in his hand. The unicorn snorted, but allowed it to slip the halter over his head. When it was on, the beast gave a great sigh and followed the tug of the swiftly attached lead rope. I went to walk with him, but a strong red hand on my shoulder stopped me, and all I could do was watch as the unicorn was led through an opening in the rock wall on the opposite side of the clearing. As soon as its tail disappeared through the opening, the lead elf turned to Dawson. Bring the payment. You will have your dust by dawn. If you let us film their end, we'll double the fee. Film? And Dawson held up his phone. We capture the images of their end in this device and store them so we can watch them die long after they're gone. Show me. Dawson safetied his rifle and passed it to his partner, Hill, if I remembered correctly. The elves watched him, and I realized that none of them were holding weapons. Not a single one. How in Hades had they been such a threat to the unit? Seconds later I was on my knees, my own scream echoing in my ears and Dawson pausing in his journey to their leader. I lifted my head and pushed back to my feet. The unicorn had been fighting that on his own, and he'd stood for longer than I'd managed. The unicorn knew what to expect, the leader said, as Dawson held out his mobile for inspection. I watched the elf switch tension. Have him do it again, Dawson said, pointing at me and positioning the mobile so it could take a perfect shot of me. I'd like to say I was expecting the wave of pain that wound itself around my skull and lanced through my brain, that I resisted it, but I wasn't, and I didn't. This time, when I lifted my head, Dawson was holding the phone up for the elven leader and showing him how to play the small clip he'd taken. I heard my own voice scream several times before the leader smiled. Direct me, he said, and Dawson obliged. I hit the ground twice more before the thorn elf was satisfied with his mastery of the device. I will take this, he said. You will have your images. But, Dawson began, and the thorn elf held up his hand. Of those that enter our halls, none are allowed to return. None? Dawson looked over at me. Truly? The elf followed his gaze. None, he said, and I did my best to keep the fear from my face, to still the roiling in my gut. Dawson gave me a speculative stare. I don't suppose we could barter for more video, he began, and the thorn elf scowled. Another time. Make good on this payment first. Just don't kill her first, Dawson said, shifting his attention back to the elf. There are folk will pay good money to see it. I ran the number of arrests I'd made and dust rings I'd broken up through my head, and figured he was right. It was just a darn shame I wasn't going to be able to take him down with me. Indeed, the elf answered, and then waved him back toward the trail. You can go. Do not return until this time tomorrow. Do not return without your payment. Dawson went. He looked at the mobile in the thorn elf's hand, and for a moment I thought he might be going to ask for it back. I also saw when he decided that would be a bad idea and that he should just go. I almost panicked at the sight of it, but grabbed the fear and held it tight. It's not that I liked Dawson, but he was human, and these guys were so not. It wasn't even because Dawson wouldn't hurt me if he got half a chance, because he very much would. The heavens knew I'd ruined enough of his plans for him to think I deserved it. No, it was just because I didn't want to be left behind. I turned and started to walk after him. It was a fool's dream, but it was worth a try. It was also very short-lived. This time it was a firm grip on the arm that pulled me up short, instead of the blinding pain that had been meted out before. This way. I hadn't known that more than their leader could speak English, and tried to shrug the hand away. I felt thorns emerge, tearing through my shirt and into flesh, and decided to follow, coming to a stop before their leader. They were a lot taller up close than they'd looked from the clearing's edge, and they were heavier than your average elf, broader across the chest with more heavily muscled arms. I forced myself to raise my head and look their leader in the eye. It was a lot harder than I'd thought it would be, since every instinct I had was telling me to be afraid, to not antagonize, to look away, look down, to wait for death. I pushed the impulses back and looked him in the face instead. I am an officer of the Paranormal Operations Squad, I said, hating the way my voice shook. We keep the peace in human lands. Dust trafficking is forbidden. Dawson will be indicted. The Thorn Elf didn't blink. He met my look with a solemn gaze, studying my face with fathomless eyes. I caught the glimmer of a clear membrane flicking across his eye in an almost invisible blink, and then he raised his hand and caught my chin between a curled forefinger and a thumb. In these lands I rule, he said, and we trade with whom we please. We are not subject to your human laws. Again, I heard that slight twist given to the name human, but the elf ignored my reaction. He tilted his head from one side to the other, studying the lines of my face, and then moving his head as though looking down past the armor to my cloth-clad legs and booted feet. It is hard to see your form beneath this, he said, rapping the side of my armor with the knuckles of his other hand. But your face promises strength and youth. I watched his eyes, trying to follow his gaze without being able to see where it went. From the way he moved his head back and forth, I figured he was taking another tour down my legs before he headed back up to my face. There really wasn't anything I could say to that, so I let him break the silence. Dust is not all we traffic in, and there is a market in the other world for human stock, he said, appearing to focus on my expression. I stiffened, trying not to jerk my chin out of his grip, but it tightened. I caught the smallest hint of thorn and froze. Intelligence is not always a desirable trait, he said, but someone looking for troll hybrids. And I froze, found my voice, sought to erase the tremble. That, too, is forbidden. His lips curved into something resembling a smile. Not in my lands, it's not. Well, there was that. My people will barter, I started, lifting my hand toward the pocket that held my phone. He captured it before it was halfway there, holding it still. Your people? The squad. As I said it, a roar thundered out from the direction of the bridge, and the remaining thorn elves moved to interpose themselves between us and the path leading out of the woods. He let go of my chin, keeping his hold on my wrist. There is no time. Even if you were to contact them, they would not be able to get through. The way to our lands is very well guarded. I remembered the combi by the lake, the comfortable camp, and wondered if the elves had warned Dawson and his sidekick. It was as though the elf could read my mind. Their camp is warded. They have been warned not to leave it until an hour after dawn. Oh, they had they? Well, all I had to do was make it back to the camp before the trolls left their bridge, and I'd be warded too. Not against us, you wouldn't, and we have a pact with the trolls. Which was when I realized that he really had been answering my thoughts, and that he hadn't let go of my hand. I glanced down, noting the firmness of his grip. Well, that couldn't be good. But I don't want to go with you, I said. It was worth a try, but there was no humour in his face when he replied. So few of our captives do. I pulled back, trying to pull my hand out of his as the trolls roared again. This time, when he looked toward the path, I followed the turn of his head and saw his guards casting him anxious looks, their hands flexing as though preparing to seize weapons. So much for having a pact. Trolls are unpredictable, he explained, and turned back to the cliff face, wrapping an arm around my back and pulling my hand across his body as he kept a hold of it. I felt the briefest touch of thorns, but they did not puncture skin. A warning, then. Time we went. I tried to dig my heels in, to twist out of his grip, willing to risk the trolls over an eternity in Fey custody, but he lifted my feet from the ground and began to run. I tried to reach my phone with my one free hand. I didn't know what signal I had now, but I was betting it was better than the one I'd had from under the cliff. This time he didn't stop me. I doubt he even noticed. Good thing, too. I didn't try to take the phone out of my pocket, just felt for the buttons to activate it and hoped Leilani could pick up the call. We'd built in the distress signal a while back, but this was the first time I'd used it. There was no way of telling if it would even work.